The recent release of the Automatons update for space engineers, there were a lot of changes and updates made to the game's AI. So in today's video, I'm going to show you the basics of setting up a drone, similarly to the one I have behind me right here. I'm going to show you how it can dock automatically, follow a patrol route, and even take down incoming enemies. So without further ado, let's get right to it. Now, there are a few things you are going to need before we start making the drone. So you'll need a grid with a power source. In this case, we have a battery right here, a gyroscope, which we have 2 of, and thrust in all directions. Since the new AI doesn't seem to like when it's lacking thrust in one of the 6 directions, even when in gravity, so having some downwards facing thrusters should make this a whole lot easier and more stable. You will also be needing a cockpit. However, this can be removed once the drone has been set up. Once that is all done, we will need to start adding the AI blocks. And to start with the docking, there are only 2 blocks that we will be needing: the AI flight block and the AI recorder block. Now, the important part with these 2 blocks is that, as you can see on the very front, it has indicators for where the front is, and on the sides, which direction is left and right. This will be very important for later on after you have recorded the path of the drone, as well as for the drone's behavior itself. Since if you have the block facing the wrong way, it'll certainly be traveling with its ass towards the enemy, and I don't think you want that. Now, there is one important thing to note about the AI recorder block. When recording a path, the waypoints generated will generate where the recorder block is located. So the waypoints will be generated inside the recorder block. And when the drone is going to follow the waypoints it has made, it will attempt to line them up with the recorder block, so getting the waypoints inside of the recorder block. So having the recorder as close to the center of mass as possible is a good idea. As you can see on my drone right here, I have the flight block and the recorder block. You do not need to worry about the other 2 for now, as I will explain that later. But we can start off by getting into the cockpit and first of all disconnecting our drone from the landing pad. So moving it a bit away, we will start the path recording process. So the reason why we need a cockpit is that the recorder block has several ways of recording a path. You can either start recording a path yourself and set how often it'll generate waypoints whilst recording and at what distance intervals. Now this is a very good way of generating a quick path that doesn't need to be too accurate. However, for a landing procedure like this one, we would want the path to be as accurate as possible. So we're going to go into our G menu and get the AI recorder block and move it down onto our hotbar. And the very bottom option, it says add waypoint. Once you have added the waypoint, you also need to remember to turn on show on HUD for the AI recorder block and turn on show path on HUD for the AI recorder block. This will allow us to actually see the waypoints as we generate them. In order for this to work as well, you will also need show AI functions toggled in your info menu, as well as an antenna in the back. So now that it is all set up, we can start generating our waypoints. So by pressing 1, we can see that we have generated the very first waypoint, marked as 0. So moving to the connector, we want to position ourselves roughly above it, maybe like 5 to 10 meters or so, record the next path, and then head straight down. Now, there is one important thing to note. If we want the connection to be as accurate as possible, we would want to turn off the connector. The reason why is, as you can see, even though we are locked on with the connector, there is a small gap which would provide inaccuracies when the drone is trying to maneuver itself. If we turn off the connector, we can bring our drone just slightly farther down to make the third waypoint. Now that we have created our path, we can move on to the AI flight block. Now we have a variety of options like AI behavior, collision avoidance, and precision mode, as well as a speed limit, a minimum altitude, and alignment to P gravity. Now the alignment and the pitch angles will only be important if you have a drone that will be unable to sustain itself if it flies in any direction, in order to avoid things like that. Now essentially what the max interim pitch angles do is prevent the AI from rolling or pitching to certain degrees. This would be very helpful if you do not have adequate thrust to keep your drone upright in all directions. So for instance, as you can see here, I do not have enough thrust to keep it upright. So having those max angles would be very useful in order to prevent the drone from flipping over, for instance. Now, what we want to do is we want to turn down our minimum altitude to 0, as well as turn on precision mode and turn on AI behavior. Now, given that the connector is slightly buried into the foundation below and that there is a base in front of the landing platform, we will have to turn collision avoidance off in order to be able to land. So, once all of that is done, we can go back to our AI recorder block and hit play. And what it'll do then is that it'll begin to move to the very first waypoint that was generated. And once it has been reached, it'll go ahead and turn around and go to the next one. Now it does like to angle itself from time to time in various forms or ways. But as you can see now, it is moving down and we're at the connector. And once it is done going through its path, it'll turn off AI behavior, which you can either choose to turn on AI behavior or play the recorded path in order for it to perform the actions that you want it to. Now, we have reached the connector, but we want it to be able to connect automatically. So what we can do is we can go back into the AI recorder block and go to waypoint 2. When you select any of the waypoints, you have a few options, one of them being set up action. So what we want to do is we want to either set up our connector to switch lock or set up a timer block that will connect the connector for us. Using a timer block would allow us to have more actions, since with the recorder block or any of the other blocks that allow you to set up actions at waypoints, you're only able to set up a singular action. So timer blocks might be very useful here. But if we go to set up our connector block, add the connector to it, lock, and then adjust the time down to 2 seconds. We're doing this because when the drone moves down, the moment it reaches waypoint 2, if we were to have it switch lock instead of activating the timer, the connector wouldn't have time to stabilize itself. But by having the connector be connected through the timer block, the drone is able to stabilize itself before then locking. So if we were to test this out, before then coming into land, reaches waypoint 2, and there you go. Now we are connected to the base itself. One thing that would also be quite handy is to have one of the waypoints turn collision avoidance off. This would allow us to have it on for the majority of the drone's flight, only to then have it be turned off when the drone is coming in to land. Which would be very useful if you're having the drone follow you around or attack a target. So if we then, on waypoint 1, have it turn collision avoidance off, the moment it reaches the very first waypoint, it'll turn collision avoidance off. If we want to take this further than just the drone being able to dock itself, we can add the AI basic task block, which would allow us to have the drone return from essentially anywhere and dock itself. So as you can see, I have an AI basic task block here, and it does not have any sort of orientation requirements, so you can place it wherever and however you want. So if we back a bit away from the base, the way the basic task block works is that it has 3 different objective modes: follow home, follow player, and autopilot. In this case, we're interested in autopilot. And in autopilot mode, it has 3 different modes. Patrol, which will go between a set of waypoints. Circle, which will go through the list of waypoints. And one way, which will go through all the waypoints a single time before then stopping. So for now, we are interested in the one-way mode. Now, what we want to do is close to the very first point in our recorded path, we want to create a GPS. So if we go into the chat and type /GPS home return, for instance, the name does not matter at all. All we need is a GPS. As we can see, we have GPS home return right there. If we were to then go into AI basic task, scroll down and find home return in our GPS list and add it, we will now be able to see that if we back away and then go into AI flight, turn AI flight on, and then turn on the AI behavior for basic task, you can see that the drone now flies to the GPS point that has been provided. Now, with the AI basic task block, the drone is able to move at a much faster top speed than with the AI recorder block. And that is just due to the fact that the AI basic task is a lot less accurate. So you would generally want the AI basic task, or if you are going to make patrol routes, and then AI recorder for more precision-based landings. But anyhow, now we could see that we reached home return, but we wanted to be able to start on the recorded path as well. Then we simply go into the AI basic block, select our waypoint, and then set up action. Then we can find our AI recorder block, drag it down, and then play. So now, as you could see, the moment it had reached the home return waypoint, it begun playing the recorded path. So that is essentially how you set up the very basic functionality of a drone. With this, you are able to send the drone off to ridiculous distances and have it return and be able to auto-dock itself, as long as it has enough battery power or ammunition. If you were to have a defensive drone, those things could be kind of important to make sure are topped off and maintained. So now we are going to go over how you can set up a patrol route and how you can have the drone be able to detect and land whether it is running out of battery or if it is running out of ammunition. So first things first, we are going to need a basic task block. Now, why do we need another one? It is simply because if we want to have a patrol path in addition to our return path, we need two of them. That is basically it. It can only have a certain set of waypoints. If we go into our second task block and call this patrol route, change it to autopilot, and change it to the circle mode, we can begin adding a few GPS locations. Now, I've already set up a patrol path that the test drone is following, so we can just go ahead and use that. So, going into the basic task block, we can go to patrol route, and then add the various GPS locations. Now, one important thing to remember is the order that you place everything in. Luckily, you can adjust it in the basic task block, but you should make sure that you have your GPS coordinates organized and in order. So now that we have our path set up, we would want it to be able to be engaged automatically. Now, how could we do that? So, if we were to get a timer block, I've titled this one Launch, we can set up a few actions. So let us start by having the drone disconnect from the connector, and then to turn on the AI behavior of the basic task block patrol route. If we were to then trigger the timer block, we could see that the drone now moves up and flies to the first test patrol waypoint. Now, it may have been a bit of a bad idea engaging it at the same time as the other one, but with collision avoidance and all, we can see that the drones are able to avoid each other. Now, we have the patrol path set up, we have the docking mechanism. So how can we make it so the drone knows when to return back to dock at our station? So, this is where the new event controllers come in. If we have a event controller that I've adequately titled ammo, set it to the event cargo filled percent, equal or less, and then adding the blocks that I wanted to check whether or not the cargo is filled in, we will be able to have the event controller detect when the drone is running out of ammo. The exact same goes for battery power, with the event stored power percent equal or less, and then the percent of power that you want to be remaining. So, if we use ammo as an example for now, we can select what actions we want it to do. So, if it were to run out of ammo, we want it to turn on the AI behavior for our return home basic task block, and then to turn off the AI behavior for the patrol route. And that is pretty much it. That is all you need to do. So now, if I were to access our little drone and then take out all of the Gatling ammo that is present, we can see that the drone has now turned around and is going back to our home return point to then refill on ammo. One thing you should do then, if you want this to be fully automated, is to have a sorter that pulls the ammo that you want constantly, so that once the drone docks, it is able to just pull the ammo and basically be fully reloaded. After the drone has filled up or recharged its batteries, we want it to be able to launch automatically, essentially putting it on an infinite cycle. How can we do that? Well, we already have our connect timer block and our launch timer block. So with another event controller, we can set up the connector connected event. If we then select the drone connector, select actions, find the timer block for the launch command, and then press start, the moment the connector connects, it will start the countdown for the launch timer block. Now you can set this then at whatever you want. Let's say 30 seconds. As it moves into land, we're able to see now on the event controller for connected that it is now connected. And if we check our launch timer block, we can see it is now counting down. So now we have an infinitely repeating system for both refilling and launching the drone. Now what you can do additionally is in the two timer blocks, you can set up an action to recharge the battery on the drone. So if we put recharge on and off there, and then put recharge on and off on the other one, we will then be able to also charge the drone when it is connecting itself. So now that we have set up the majority of the drone, there is only one piece remaining in the puzzle, and that is the offensive block. We want to be able to have our drone defend us from the attacking onslaught of enemy drones. So, placing the offensive AI block onto our grid, we have a variety of options. We, as always, have the AI behavior, what we want the offensive block to attack, what we want its targeting priority to be, how often it'll search for a target or new targets, what subsystems we want it to target, as well as the attack pattern, where you have circle/orbit, stay at range, hit and run, and intercept. Now we will only be covering the top 3 in this video, and we will cover the intercept in the next one. Now, if we start with the top option being circle and orbit, we can adjust how far away we want it to stay from the target. So when it locks on, it'll measure the distance between itself and the target according to what you have set in the circle target distance, and it will keep itself at that range. So if you were to have a drone with assault cannons as weapons, you might want to have it set at a slightly farther distance. When we're coming to armaments, you can choose to either use static weapons or manual facing priority, where you have a variety of options. We will be using static weapons for now, and we will be selecting our 2 Gatling guns and adding those as the weapons. Now, I will turn the AI behavior on, and then it'll begin its search for enemies. Now, as you can see, it has not found anything, so it has begun searching again. I will also make sure that it'll target power systems as the subsystem. Of course, given that we've now finished recording our path and everything, we no longer need the cockpit. The drone has now begun moving towards our stations, which is, oh no, danger, danger. So, once our drone has finished its search interval, which should be any moment, yep, 3, 2, 1, it was able to detect the attacking small grid. and is now moving in to attack it. As you can see, it is trying to target the battery that is on the very rear. It is also keeping itself at a 100-meter long distance. And the moment the target is neutralized, it'll go back to starting its patrol. And one thing to make sure of is to see that it has collision avoidance turned on the flight block, which it does not. If the enemy drone would have moved down onto the ground, but still not be destroyed, our drone might have flown into the ground as well, completely disabling it. So, in our timer block, we also want to make sure on launch that we add the collision avoidance turn on option. Let's test out one of the other attack patterns, which is stay at range. Here, it'll just stay at a set range, or within a range, of the target. In comparison with circle and orbit, it will not try to move around to get better angles, but it'll stay at a singular angle. Here you can also turn on evasive maneuvers. Now, if the drone stops mid-patrol, it is because we changed the targeting mode or attack pattern of the offensive block. So all you need to do then is just to have the patrol block start over again, and then it'll resume its original pattern. So you have to keep in mind to also add your weapons back in once you have changed the attack pattern. And there it goes. The last attack pattern is hit and run. Now, essentially what that will do is it will fly directly towards the target and strafe it. So it'll fly at the enemy drone, shoot at it a whole bunch, and when it gets into a certain distance, it will then pull away to try and avoid shots. So if we were to set our break-off distance at 100, and then the retreat distance to 200 meters, once our drone is within 100 meters of the enemy grid, it'll try to break off. In addition to the break-off distance and the retreat distance, we have the retreat timeout, which is essentially a different way to measure the amount of time that passes between attack runs. So if we were to set, for example, the retreat timeout to 5 seconds, the drone will begin a new attack run within 5 seconds, even if it hasn't reached those 200 meters. And lastly, you have the retreat angle, which is what angle it'll retreat from or rotate compared to the enemy grid. With it being at 90, once it goes at our enemy drone, it'll turn either right or left, since the retreat angle is 90 degrees. If it was to be 180, it would turn completely around. So if we were to test this out, let's adjust the retreat angle to 45, for instance, and let's just have it begin its patrol once again. Let's go ahead and have it start its patrol whilst I set up the next enemy drone. So now that we have our AI drone, we can see our drone already beginning to open fire and rapidly approaching. The moment it reaches 100 meters, you can see it changed the angle to try and get to the 200 meters distance from the target. Having set it to 250 meters, we can see that it moved up to 250 meters before going back towards the target. Now once again, when it got within 100 meters, it tried to pull away. It'll move up to 250 meters, then turn around and start another attack run. And there you go, threat eliminated. And it can return back to base. So that is how you set up a very basic patrol drone. There is a lot more functionality to still be explored with these new AI blocks, but hopefully this gave you a quick overview of how to make a very basic patrol drone that is able to dock itself and engage approaching enemies. And I would like to thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye!